Hello and welcome to the Disc of Truth. I'm Jono.
And I'm James.
And as you know, the Disc of Truth is a show where me and James talk about whatever the hell we want, whether it can be anything and everything, nothing is off the table. And yeah, that's about it. And just remember, before we get going, if you've been liking what you've been hearing, do leave us a like, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment, let you know what you think. We're always happy to hear from you. But yeah, let's get going. So today's episode, we're going to talk about anime. So I've been watching anime now for a very, very long time. What about you, James?
Yeah, quite a long time. I think I was early teens when I first discovered anime.
Yeah, I think I was roughly about the same. Like, as a kid, like I watched Pokemon and watched stuff like that. But then I genuinely think at one point what actually got me into it was actually Pokemon.
Okay.
I started rewatching it, and I actually rewatched the entire series up to the point that I've watched it, and then just sort of carried on following it. So I think for me, yeah, it was probably Pokemon. But what was early thoughts, James? What did you sort of
early anime that I was watching? Because I ended up being quite lucky that I ended up watching a lot of Cartoon Network stuff. So there was Digimon, which was something I really enjoyed. I'd watched a bit of Pokemon before, but I really got into Digimon. But
I was more of a Pokemon person.
Yeah, but I think the big gateway anime that got me wanting to watch anything was Dragon Ball, specifically Dragon Ball Z. I'd watched Dragon Ball at the time, but Dragon Ball Z I really, really enjoyed, and I still really, really enjoy to this day.
Fair play. I've never actually watched it. I think it sounds really strange, right? But bear with me. So what I was like, yeah, I kind of want to watch a bit more anime. I want to dip my toes in the water, so to speak, and get going. But I wasn't really sure what to watch. But for some reason, romance was what I started on. I mean, you can laugh by all means.
I'll tell you something after you've done. I'm more on your side than you realise.
I'm not talking like fan service ones. I've watched a lot of them. Don't get me wrong, but that wasn't really where I started. I try to remember some of the early ones I watched, but it's for the life of me, just they're not coming back to me. But I mean, if I went through a list, I could probably see. I would like to say, I am a little bit controversial, in the sense that I will only watch an anime if it's got a dub. Bar one, there was one anime I've ever watched that didn't have a dub beyond the first season, but I've watched the entire series, and I'd rather not discuss that one because that one is a very guilty pleasure. But it's not that bad. It's just one of those got a little bit of fan service. It's a bit stupid, but yeah. I mean, for some reason the characters and the story really resonate with me. So okay. That's the only one I've ever watched subbed. But yeah.
I think I mainly consume subbed, so I'm the other end of the spectrum with that. And I couldn't tell you why. I don't know why. Just that's always what I've enjoyed more.
I just don't like having to read while I'm watching something.
Well, I don't know if this makes any difference, but we'll go back to the romance thing briefly. So I watched quite a bit of anime from Dragon Ball, but I think I got into what I got into now because I started reading manga. That was my big jump. And I just ended up buying whatever mangas, and I ended up my first full collection. I don't know if you know it, and there was an anime, Love Hina.
Oh wait, I think I've seen that.
I don't think the anime's particularly good, but the manga I've read them all. So
isn't that the one where he moves into a building or something?
It's his aunt or something owns this building, and he has to go live there and work there, and it's obviously only female populated. Really typical stuff. And he meets everybody, and obviously there's one girl above all else that he really likes, and it's the journey for them getting together. But yeah, that was kind of because I got into manga quite a lot. I think I did. It goes in spits and spurts. I'm either always reading, or I'm or I'm watching anime. So I think that's why I don't mind subs.
I've read a few mangas myself. Well, a couple, two or three, not that many. I followed I read the My Hero Academia one,
Mm.
um, which I know some people aren't a huge fan of, and there's always an issue with sort of power creep. A big example of that is Fairy Tail, and it's actually an anime that I really enjoyed. But the issue was the enemies got stronger and stronger and stronger, and just this episode is going to be spoilery. Just putting it out there right now, this episode is going to be spoilery. Um, but going back to Fairy Tail, it got to the final season, and the Emperor essentially was the big bad who they were against, right? He was the dark wizard who's been alive for hundreds of years. He's essentially immortal, blah blah blah. But his generals, every single one of them, was as strong, if not stronger, than the strongest wizard on Fairy Tail's continent, right? So on Fairy Tail's continent, it's run by a council of wizards, and each one of those are called a wizard saint, and they each one of them are really really strong. And then the strongest one, the one at ranked number one, defects to the Empire, right? Becomes a general, but the rest of the generals are all as strong, if not stronger, than him, right? So, like, it comes to a point of like how, like, these enemies are so strong, so overwhelmingly powerful. How do they all get, how do they all get beaten? And I think that's a bit of an issue with animes like that. Like, power creep is very much a thing.
Yeah, Dragon Ball has that a lot. I mean, the first Dragon Ball was fine, but Dragon Ball Z, it was, it's the joke about power levels and stuff, and it just keeps going up and up, and oh, I'm as strong as this, or this person's now 10 times as strong as this. I guess I'll scream louder this time. And knowing all this, it's annoying because I do still like Dragon Ball, but I do find it very difficult sometimes to convince new people. Like, oh, you're going to watch all of this, and it's. But people really, really enjoyed Stranger Things, and let's be honest, that was a girl screaming really loud to beat things. Why can't we do that with long-haired people?
Yeah, it's true. It's
the same thing.
Yeah, and it's sort of like that's why a lot of people were quite a bit disappointed with the final season.
Okay.
I guess myself included. Really, like, it does get to a point where, how at what point you need to level it out, but it actually makes more sense for an enemy to be stronger because then you have to overcome it, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a bit much. I did enjoy it. Yeah, I did enjoy it, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I watched all of that. So I mean, we can talk about favorites all we want, but I mean, who wants to listen to me and you ramble on about what we like and dislike with anime? Let's talk about something a little bit more interesting. Let's talk about the naming conventions of anime because oh my god, some of them are fucking ridiculous.
I could be wrong, but is it getting worse? I don't know.
It is absolutely getting worse. So there's one at the moment. It's called "I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World and Became Unrivaled in the Real World Too." That is just too long for a start, and also it's just stupid. Like, I'm gonna name some ones, some other ones as well. There's "In Another World with My Smartphone," which we'll come back to that one because that one's absolutely fucking horrendous. You mentioned one to me.
I did, yeah. So
yes,
I think this is a great anime. So I will say that this is a top tip from me. But the name was really stupid. So, if I remember rightly, the Japanese name is Suka Suka. That's what I believe it's called. However, the English one was, "What are you doing at the end of the world? Are you busy? Will you help us?" Like, cool. Okay. What? And I don't speak that much Japanese. I get by. But I'm pretty sure that's not the translation. There's two different titles. Why?
Yeah. It's just it's bad. I mean, it's like is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon, right? So now I enjoy this anime actually. The I'm watching the fourth season. The dub is second half of the fourth season dub has finally come out, and it's actually fantastic. It's such a different direction to sort of I guess the first season was kind of like, yeah, okay, a little bit like, gods and goddesses exist in the world. They have familiars, like groups / families, whatever. And the goddess is a thirsty bitch who really wants the main character, and the main character likes someone else. Blah blah blah. All this, but then he doesn't really go like. I mean, it sounds really stupid to describe it as he doesn't go into the dungeon to pick up girls, which he doesn't. But it's not really about him trying to pick up women, or these women maybe gain little attraction for him, but because of his character, because he's quite selfless and he's quite young and innocent, but he's very selfless. He really wants to help people, and I think it's a really good anime. And if you can push through those parts, yeah, it's really good. Like some of the combat's really cool, and the fourth, as I said, the second half of the fourth season, well, the whole fourth season actually has been really, really good. It's been quite dark and quite emotional, I guess. But the naming of it is terrible. It's awful.
I've seen bits of it, but the artwork focusing on the female character and that title actually did put me off. I thought it was going to be something different until I watched a bit of it.
Yep.
So it does sound like sometimes the titles are there to get a certain audience in, which is then sometimes not catered for in the actual anime, which is a weird thing. But I don't know if that's an English thing, because I don't know how many of these are direct translations, and if they are direct translations, how good are they, or is it a totally different title? Like, why are we doing that? I don't know.
It's really weird. I mean, a few others. It's like cautious hero. The hero is overpowered but overly cautious. I watched that one. It was it was a bit meh.
It existed.
It existed. Didn't I say make my abilities average in the next life? It's like these don't need to be named like this. Like, oh, here we go. Full Dive, the ultimate next gen full dive RPG, is even shittier than real life.
Is that the title?
That's his,
what?
This is genuinely
do you know what
the
that
title.
sounds like? It sounds like they put a title, and it's like a review. It's the title, and then there's like what the article is. That's what it feels like they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you willing to fall in love with a pervert as long as she's a cutie? But it's stuff like that, man. Like, I've been killing slimes for 300 years and maxed out my level. Like, at this point, you're not...
one line too long all the time, isn't it?
It's just call it something different. Just call it... So, if my favourite pop idol made it to the Byakugan, I would die. Like, I could go... The list goes on. Like, I'm only in the eyes, but the list goes on. Like,
do you know what? The more that you say it, like, I'm even thinking of, like, animes I quite like. And they've all got other titles. Like I mentioned about RE0 before we started talking, but RE0 is not the full title, is it? It's RE0 starting life from zero. And same for Konosuba as well. Why has this become such a big thing now?
I don't know. It's really strange. It's just really, really weird that, like, why do they think that long names are necessary? Like, you could use simply just two words,
yeah,
and it doesn't, like, I'm not, I'm not going to start coming up with names for them. That's their job. But like, you could quite easily just do something different with naming conventions. It's just got very weird.
Yeah.
It's getting worse and worse. I mean,
it reminds me of an old school Fall Out Boy album. It's just stupid titles that too long.
Yeah. It was like all Panic at the Disco songs.
Yes.
Panic at the Disco songs were just ridiculous. I mean, they had some very good songs, but yeah, their naming were ridiculous. But it didn't matter. But that's the thing though. Like, it doesn't matter as long as it's good. But a lot of these are kind of trash. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think the more trash ones you get that have got these titles, the more of these titles come out, the less I'm going to trust them. Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And most of them are all the bloody same genre as well now, aren't they?
That is very true. Speaking of genres, that's perfect segue into that, James. I appreciate that. No, so let's talk about genre, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about one genre in particular. Let's talk about isekai. Because it's fucking everywhere.
It is.
Right? And I don't understand why. The thing is, I actually quite enjoy an isekai. I watch a lot of them. I'd say 70% of them are trash. But you got to watch some trash. You got to watch some good stuff. You got to watch some trash. And
yeah, just admit that. Do you know what? There is some trash anime, and it's fine to watch them. And just the sooner everybody can get together and go, I like watching trash anime, I think the world would be a better place.
I like watching trash anime. Just saying.
Yeah, same here.
I'm watching some I've seen some truly horrendous ones over my time. But yeah, what is with this sudden obsession with isekai? Like, where did it come? Like, isekai's always been a thing with anime. That's fine because it's just a convention, isn't it? Like, what would happen if you woke up in another world where you could start to use magic, or what would happen if you got reincarnated in another world? Like, how would you live? Blah blah blah. So these are story tropes that exist, but where did the sudden craze for isekai come from? It's just
because it also does art style and story style wise. A lot of them will go with probably the 70% trash that we were saying. There's a lot of them, it's exactly the same, except there's one tiny detail that's changed. It's like someone went, how do we make 1,000 things out of this genre?
Yeah.
Because it kind of feels like that.
It's like they've got a tombola, right?
Yeah, so they're on isekai at the moment. They're like, okay, well, it's going to be set
so
here. This is there's a card.
Yeah. So they just churn them out. But so they've just got themselves a little tombola. They've got a few. One says protagonist, blah blah blah, and they've got convention, world, blah blah blah, all this stuff, and they're like, oh, what happened? It's silly, really. It really is silly.
In a weird way, I don't know if it's a genius idea or a stupid idea, but if you say isekai is the base genre, and then you throw out a million different versions, at some point, anyone who watches anime is going to like at least one of them, I guess. And I suppose, I've said before, I quite like RE0. I really like Konosuba. There'll be people out there who will hate those, and they'll be like, no, the smartphone one is my favourite one because of this, and this.
No, the smartphone one is no one's favourite.
I can't comment because I've not watched it, but I've heard people say that it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
But that's the thing. It's clearly they've gone, oh, here's the genre, here's the niche, and that market will come here. And I don't know if it's genius or not, because instead of chasing that one perfect anime, out of 10 you're making 9 trash.
Yeah, I mean there are some that are pretty decent. I'm enjoying the Eminence in Shadow.
Okay.
That
doesn't sound like it has a stupid title, by the way.
Yeah, I mean that's an isekai. Like he there's this guy who he wants to be the Eminence in Shadow. And what that means is he wants to sort of be a dark hero, if you will. And he's got him and then he in the world he lived in, he was training himself really well. He was actually really strong and whatever. And then he ends up dying and reincarnates in this world that he's in. But it has magic, so he continues with that dream essentially to become the elements of shadow, and there's a whole lot more to it than the blah blah blah. But it's I mean it's by no means a fucking masterpiece or anything, but it's that one's not too bad actually. The main character's a little bit of a douche, but it's okay. It's okay. And then, but yeah, I mean, going off Isekai, we can talk this. Should we talk about some trash?
Yeah, go on.
All right, so
are we ashamed? Is the question first?
This one, absolutely. There is no. We did discuss this, and I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it because when I did mention it, I burst out laughing when describing it. But it's called Keijo. Okay, so we're going to talk about Keijo. So Keijo is technically a sports anime, and I say technically with like
the biggest air quotes
you've ever seen in your entire life, because the sport in question is a sport where women have to try and knock themselves off a floating platform in water using only their tits and their asses. And and they, it's an anime, so obviously they have special moves. And
of course,
I can even feel myself about to crack now because I can't even go into it. But just look it up. Just look up 2 words: titty hypnosis, and oh my god, or butts of Babylon. You may want to be careful about where you Google.
I was going to say these sound like they're very specific films, John.
But no, this is 100% from Keijo. But that is probably one of the trashiest animes I've ever seen, but you can't help but laugh about it. Me and my friend are always like, when we discuss it, we're like, it's pure gold. It's amazing. We're like, it's art. But yeah, it's not good. It really isn't good. But that brings me to something that is so bad, it is good. And I don't know, do you have any idea what we might be talking about here, James?
Oh, what, ghost stories?
Yes. So a little bit of background on Ghost Stories, because Ghost Stories is insane. Like, the story behind this is... So when I say Ghost Stories, I'm only referring to the dub, okay? So
yeah.
If you were to ever watch Ghost Stories, I can't stress this enough, don't watch the sub, watch the dub. Because
if you get the sub, you'll get the actual anime.
Yeah. But if you get the dub, you get something that is... If it were made now, it would not be allowed to be released. It would be cancelled. It is so inappropriate and bad, and it's so incorrect and offensive and horrible that it's so funny to watch. Okay?
Yeah. It's like Scooby-Doo on crack, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. So I'm going to do a little bit of a story here. So bear with me. So Aniplex, they owned the series distribution rights for Ghost Stories. They approached ADV Films to produce the dub. So Aniplex gave them very few constraints when writing the version. So the only rules were, don't change the character names, including the ghosts. Don't change the way the ghosts are slain. And finally, don't change the core meaning of each episode. So because of that, they literally did whatever the fuck they wanted. So they came in and they kept the plot structure and the storyline relatively the same, but then they started including like pop culture references, politically incorrect gags. They were breaking the fourth wall. They were making jokes about the show's low animation quality, like all jokes about poor lip syncing and anime cliches and stuff like this. And it's so bad. And it was basically like they wrote a script and they allowed for ad-libbing quite a bit. And what happened was that whoever showed up to the recording studio first for any episode could improvise anything that they wanted, and then anyone else who came in later had to build upon the tone and jokes that were already established. So it was in like, basically there was a general like gist for each episode, a general script for it, but it was mostly just improvised. So when you watch it, the jokes they're coming out with are just insane. And do you know what? I'll pop a link in the comments for
Yeah.
one of the videos, but and I will just give a warning now. It is offensive. It is offensive.
Yeah.
It is racist. It is sexist. It is homophobic. It is not good.
It is not.
But
Yeah, it is not something that would pass any sort of board of directors in this day and age.
yes, absolutely
It's
not.
definitely a product of its time.
Yeah, but I would 100% recommend not watching the series. Just watch the videos. To be fair, you don't need to
Yeah.
watch the series. I've watched the series on your behalf, so you don't have to. And I can tell you it's shit. But just yeah, it is. It's funny. It's funny, but as long as you go into it knowing that it is offensive, and you're laughing
Yeah.
at more of what they say, not no. You're laughing at the fact that they said it, not at what they say. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
I still didn't believe it was a thing when you first showed it to me. Like all the funny moments, it
yeah,
reminded me of. I can't remember the YouTube channel that did it, but do you remember all the abridged series, like
yeah. I
Yu-Gi-Oh!
was just
Abridged?
yeah,
Was
yeah,
it,
yeah.
Little Karibo, I think it was. Was that it? It reminded me of that, and I didn't want to believe this was a real thing, but it's the thought of this actually went out on TV and this was a real thing. Like this is I don't want to believe it, but it's there. It's there.
Yeah, it's insane. So someone actually described, this is a reviewer, described the dubbed version of Ghost Stories as the best and worst anime dub ever, or well, not necessarily ever, but just the best and worst anime dub. It's ridiculous. Like it is infamous, and it is something that, as I said, watch the funny videos, because the funny moments videos for Ghost Stories, because they are so bad. It's relentless. Yeah, and that's about it for Ghost Stories, and I think that's about it for this episode. Do you have anything else to add about anime, James? I mean, I'm not sure what we have left to say, but what I have left to say, but by all means, if you've got anything.
I mean, actually, to be honest, I'd just throw it out and ask: is there any anime recommendations? I've been out of the anime loop a little bit recently. I haven't been wanting to watch any of these isekais recently. So if there's any recommendations, I'll take them.
I can help you out with those. You'll probably never watch them though, because you never fucking do. But
that list is getting longer. I might make the list into wallpaper. Actually,
the amount of times I've given this man recommendations, and he's not watched them is insane. But by all means, if you think you have any better luck, recommending James something, by all means, go for it. But as for this episode, what are your favourite animes? Do you have any guilty pleasures regarding them? Like, do you have any recommendations of stuff that we might have seen? If it's got a dub, then I might give it a watch. If it hasn't, I probably won't. But yeah, feel free to let us know in the comments below. And and from us here at the Disc of Truth, I'd just like to say, get the fuck off my. Thank you very much for listening, and have yourselves a wonderful day.
we can keep that as the ending if you fancy. It was funny.
Yeah, fuck it.
Cool.
Yeah.
You done? Cool.
Yeah, we're done.